turn over the floor to Randy, but I would like to begin by acknowledging that Mount Saint Vincent University acknowledges our location in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq and Maliseet people first signed with the British Crown in 1725. These treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Maliseet title and established the rules for what was to become an ongoing relationship between nations. Mount Saint Vincent University acknowledges with deep respect that the long history of cultural traditions of the Mi'kmaq. We are committed to maintaining and building relationships based on the principles of mutual trust, respect, reciprocity, and collaboration in the spirit of reconciliation. I would also like to acknowledge that people of African descent have been in Nova Scotia for over 400 years, and we honor and offer gratitude to those ancestors of African descent who came here before us to this land. Again, my name is Dr. Jackie Gahagan. I'm the Associate Vice President here at MSVU in the Research Office. And just before we turn the floor over to our speaker, I wanted to note that the purpose of the Black and Indigenous Speaker Series, which is housed in the MSVU Research Office, is really meant to showcase the scholarly work of Black and Indigenous researchers from across Turtle Island. And the purpose of this series is to initiate important conversations by inviting both Black and Indigenous scholars to share their knowledge, their worldviews, and their contributions in their respective academic fields. And I'll stop there and pass it over to you, Sonia. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Sonia Smith. I'm the Administrative Assistant for the Research Office. And I would now like to introduce the Oluwada Bilari. I'm sorry if I Dami as well. And Sodiende, who is an international student from Nigeria in the second year, majoring in economics and minoring in business here at MSVU. He is dedicated in his volunteer work with the Black Student Society and the International Education Center and will be introducing Randy for us today.
Thank you, Sonia. Today I'll be giving a brief bio of our presenter. Randy is an exceptional individual dedicated to building a sense of community and advancing crucial research areas. He founded the MSVU Afrocentric Support Group, creating a space at Mount Saint Vincent University that champions and aids the Afrocentric viewpoint. As an alumni and as a member of MSVU, Randy has shown unwavering support to the Black students at the Mount. Thank you, Randy, for joining us today. We would love to hear your insights on unpacking the underrepresentation of Black students in research at MSVU. Over to you, Randy.
All right, thank you all. I can see lots of pictures there. And before I get too far into it, I want to make sure I pull up the right presentation because I did this presentation like 3 times. And it's telling me something is loading, and that's a scary thought. All right.
Randy, you're muted. We can see your slides. Okay.
Yeah, one sec. Just trying to find it.
I think we can see your slides, right?
Are you seeing my slides in presentation mode, Jackie?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh, perfect. So under unpacking the underrepresentation of Black students in research. This presentation was a very, very long time coming, and so we are going to learn together. When I say a long time, it's over a year that I've completed this presentation, and since then, some of what I'll be discussing today have been actioned. In fact, this is the kind of research work I do, is that when I observe a problem or an issue, I think it is required of me also to know what the solution is and to enact some measures instantly to move ahead in a progressive way to support the ideas or the issues that might have been presented. So some of these issues and some of the discussions today have already been enacted. And so I thank you all for being here. Yes, let's see. So Jackie, if you might just let me know, is my notes showing on the right-hand side as well?
No.
Oh, okay, perfect. So is diversity in research important? I'm also going to point out that I am doing this presentation from the Black Student Support Office, and students are free to come and go as they please. So if you see people walking back and forth, this office is always open and it allows students to come in and go. I think it's also important that for those who are sitting around, that they hear and participate in this session. As I noticed in our invitation, I looked to see who will be here today. I noticed that students were lacking, so it was quite it was quite important for me then to be in this space where the students would be. If we're speaking of underrepresentation of Black students in research, then I think Black students should be a part of this to hear what we found and what we're discussing about them. So I'm thankful for being in this space, and please do bear with me if students if their phones ring, which I'm hoping it won't, or if any of those little minor noise happen, it's just normal in this space. We promise no debates today during this presentation. So is diversity in research important? And that is actually just it's really not a question to be answered. We should know that, when we embark on research, that diversity is important. So in terms of, I have a list of why I believe that diversity is important. Diversity in research is important. From the cultural sensitivity perspective, it presents an opportunity beyond simply being respectful of others' culture. It is also important for cultural humility, which involves an ongoing process of self-exploration and self-critique combined with wellness, to learn from others. For representations, I've said this Proverbs over 100 times, and I'd like to say it again today, that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so representations for me is important in research. When we think of equity and fairness, I also think of my own experience as a Black student, and how it was difficult to break that ceiling of participating in research. And when I say break the ceiling, it was also built on self-doubt and all of the everything else, which kept me away from wanting to engage in research, along with external pressures. And so there are these other on the list that I have, these others that I have on the list. We can discuss those later, but I just wanted to share those few with you. In research, one of the things that we learn, and I do like Proverbs, by the way, so if you hear them or see them in my notes quite often, just know that this guy just likes to speak in Proverbs sometimes. There's this quote, and the students are nodding their heads. There's this quote that we use in Guyana. It says, "Natak yamati aifosi." And I know many of you were looking at that and thinking, what is he going to say when he reads that? It's "Natak yamati aifosi." So basically it says, do your own research. It says, don't take your friend's eyes as a mirror. And the list is on there. So I think one of the things that we ought to do now is look into the box, since we're going to do this in our own eyes. And I remember in one of my early graduate courses when I heard unpacking this backpack. I think this was in Dr. Brigham's class, and I was thinking, what a weird title for a paper. But then when we start the unpacking and understanding what's in it, it made sense. And hence I chose this name, Unpacking, so we can understand what's in it and see if we can make sense of what happens with Black students in research at the Mount. So in Unpacking, I have a few list of items here, which you might be familiar with. I should have put others, but these are some of the critical ones that I could think of. Others that I can also think of is financial constraints, mentorship gap. Well, we talk about representations already. There's a lack of representations, and there are many other barriers that should be in this box. The names here, I can read them out: time constraints, incentives, cultural barriers, geographical barriers, resource availability, privacy concerns, curriculum alienation, and fear of mistrust, acceptability, and equity tax. These are just a small list of the items that I think should be in this box. And at the end of this conversation, I hope that you would have more to add to this box, because my perspectives and my experiences are somewhat different from many of yours. And I think as an institution, if we are open to learning why Black students are excluded, we need to first identify where the issues are. And if we want to box these issues and then deal with them one at a time, I think we will get somewhere. Oh, I did the slow motion thing. All right, so the purpose of this presentation, I think we ought to then I looked at it from the two communities' perspective, and I don't know what it is about but the communities of practice from Wenger that often intrigues me to want to understand why things aren't happening. Oftentimes you see just a few benefiting in the middle. But I often ask myself then, why aren't the others participating? Why aren't the others gaining from the resources that are available? And so my purpose today would be to draw your attention to the underrepresentation of Black students in research at the Mount, hence the title. And then I want to emphasize the necessity of addressing just start my notes because that print is really small. Emphasize the necessity to address and rectify the underrepresentation of Black students in research, to facilitate a collaborative approach for Black students in research, and to propose an actionable plan for conducting future research involving Black students. So just focusing on that last piece, an actionable plan. We do have a call to act. I do have a call to action in the end. So if you're taking notes and you're hearing some of what I'm saying, and you'd like to add to the call to action, this is just a heads up to draw your attention to what will happen later on. So it's important for me to provide a historical background and just to contextualize the work that happens here in the Black Student Support Office, but also, if I may just grab on any other literature, I think it is important that we have an historical context. This is our context, MSVU, and we're all familiar with this. But how familiar are we with the issues surrounding Black students in research? So I thought it was important for us to spend some time on this. Historical barriers and challenges faced by Black students in accessing research opportunities. These are some of the issues that exist. According to Shankar and others, lack of financial capital is one of the most widely cited barriers amongst Black students in research. And from a personal perspective, without citing any research that I've done here in the BSSO, I identify with the financial issues that Black students would face in terms of the option of doing a research program, a thesis-based program, and a non-thesis. They'll opt for the non-thesis, especially for an international student, citing the fact that the cost of doing these extra work is overwhelming, and so they would opt to go for the quicker route. There's systemic discriminatory practice, and stresses that can be experienced by many of these students, especially those that fall into the immigrant category. There's little encouragement from departmental heads, and I'm saying this as an encouragement piece because from a personal perspective, I was encouraged to conduct research. I had a faculty member who said to me, I will check in on you. I think he said every semester. He said, I'll check in with you every semester to see where you're going with your work. And he said, don't take it as me nagging you. This was someone outside of my department, but he was just interested in knowing where I'm going with my work. And I think often when our students demonstrate a lack of interest, then in research, then the written report says there's a lack of interest in research. Without this this appetite to find out why there is this lack of interest, or to go beyond what the literature might say, that there's a lack of interest with students, and actually do something to make to change that literature. So I think what I'm presenting here is that historically, Black students at MSVU haven't had that level of encouragement from their faculties to faculties and departments to conduct scholarly research work. So they're under the key milestones or initiatives aimed at promoting diversity in research. On a micro level, the BSSO has done some work in trying to, which I will talk about a bit later in more in depth, in trying to change the narrative about the lack of Black students in research, or the underrepresentation of Black students in research. As I said at the beginning, that I will that once I found out that there was the lack of Black students in research, I began to ask myself, then what next? What shall I do? And so I was able to to implement some programs and initiatives that would enhance Black students' participation in research at Mount Saint Vincent University. So it's also important of the impact of systemic racism and discriminatory practice. So to visible minority students, or equity-seeking students, as I might say, there are many terms that we can use. The mainstream university may represent an impersonal, intimidating, and hostile environment in which little of their cultural knowledge is being talked about. And so this is the kind of systemic racism that keeps the students out. In terms of I don't see myself in the literature, so why am I doing research for something that doesn't impact me? Or I don't see people that look like me participating in research, so then what hope do I have of getting to that level if those who have achieved much more than me are unable to participate? And so the visibility is important in combating the systemic racism and discriminatory practices that seems to exist within the research sphere. I should also mention that there are others on campus who have done some significant work at combating these discriminatory practices, or their action in some of the concerns of the lack of Black students in research, in which I'm very excited to talk about. And when these actions, when these activities or initiatives are actioned, I'm often being called in to participate or to learn about them. So the current landscape at the Mount, at the Black Student Support Office, we do have Black students in some of the main programs. Looking at just programs that are linked to Black students in research. There is the Black Students in Research group. There is the Elder Circle, the Baobab tree, and if you look right behind me, there's the tree that exists. It's standing strong and tall. The number of students that we have as of when I did this presentation, we've had 382 students, of which 63 were Canadian, and these are the larger groups. Ghanaians were 83 students, Nigerians were 55, and Bahamians were 18, and there's students from a total of 27 countries. And as I think about this, I'm just my mind is just blown by the amount of diversity that exists amongst the Black students population, and the kind of opportunities that exist for us to conduct research that will answer questions to the many groups of students that exist in this space. I just showed you the tree, but also under the Baobab project, we have podcast. No need to scan this one now, but just letting you know that we've done under the podcast recording, we have one, the Black Students in Research, which I'd encourage you to listen to as well. We have season 1 done on this podcast, and again, these podcasts were research-based work, and out of this, we are currently doing some additional research work, which I'll share later on. So the BSSO Lounge, for a while, it was many students were unfamiliar with where the BSSO Lounge is. In fact, when I say, let's go meet me at the lounge, they would ask, where is that? And I'm talking about Black students, because several students thought it was the Black Student Research Center, based on the kind of work that we were doing in here. So I felt really proud to know that it was seen as that. Being in an academic space, I think it is important for us then to interact like that, and to encourage the kind of academic work that students deserve to participate in. And then when they leave this space, that they'll be proud MSVU alumni, and that the Mount will be proud to know that they have walked these corridors and participated in programs and initiatives at the Mount. So what contributes into the underrepresentations of Black students in research? These are just a few, but the lack of statistical information about Black students in research can perpetuate systemic inequalities and hinder efforts to address the existing disparities in research. You know, there's this idea of no data means no problem, and that seems to exist on our campus. I'm often amazed by the fact that that at a post-secondary institution of this caliber, that we lack the kind of data to show where our students are, and especially the equity-seeking group, especially since it is, and we're amongst friends here, since this is part of our strategic plan. And I sense that it is important that we should be focusing on getting the kind of data that would encourage our students to participate. There's a lack of understanding of the needs of the African Nova Scotian communities, much less the needs of the international students or the African Canadian communities. And there's a lack of interest, and which I'm concerned that that some of our standing pillars with limited interest to engage research, Black researchers. I didn't see what that note is, but I'll check later on. And here's one of my next proverbs that I promised. It's wealth, if you use it, it comes to an end. Learning, if you use it, it increases. And this is a Swahili proverbs. So the impact of underrepresentation amongst Black students. So, you know, when students go through this university, Black students go through the university, and they get to the end and realize that I should have done research. I should have engaged in this, or I don't know. I don't even know these, and I don't have these skills and knowledge. So it's like you've missed the boat. So these were missed opportunities for our Black students for academic growth, for skills development, and for career advancement that I think we need to address in terms of getting them prepared to be the best representation of MSVU when they leave. This underrepresentation also impacts the quality of research. There's an erasure of knowledge that should create this bridge that takes us from the knowledge that we are using and we're generating here at the Mount. There's something that is missing when we limit our perspective to one area or the other. And so it also impacts us as researchers when we neglect to include the other perspectives. So some of the existing programs that I said I was going to mention, we do have the science department that has an initiative that brings that hires visible minority students or equity-seeking students to work in the labs. Dr. Tamara has been doing this for, I think, a couple of years. The Black and Indigenous series, which we're doing. The Black students in research had a group of 13 Black students throughout the summer that were involved in research. I think it was probably the largest student research group that existed on campus throughout the summer and continues to work. Even today, we're actually growing. Being in the university setting, I think it is important for us to ground our ideas in theories. And I've already mentioned the communities of practice, and now I'm talking about the theory that grounds me and the work that is done here in the Black Student Support Office. Is Afrocentricity. I can say this in so many ways, and often I would just based on the audience, I would give a definition of what Afrocentricity means. It mandates that the Africans be viewed as subjects rather than objects, and looks at how this philosophy, ethos, and worldview gives Africans a better understanding of how to interpret issues affecting their communities. So this is a definition from Asante. So in the Black Student Support Office, it basically means that we're taking the knowledge that the Black researcher or Black student already know of, the ones that they're bringing from continental Africa or the African diaspora, and we're helping them to understand what that means. But it is coming through the lens of other Black people who would have had those experiences, or who are in positions that are respected by these students, where the students can say, okay, I understand what you mean, because you have also lived that experience. And so it makes it easy then within Afrocentricity, when we ground our ideas and ideology through an Afrocentric perspective, that the transfer of knowledge to the Black researcher becomes so much more palatable and easier for them to understand, because we have this shared perspective. And I think I can't remember who said it. Maybe it was Asante himself, or I think it was Kabbalah in 2005, who talked about whenever you're conducting, as a Black person, whenever you're conducting work in the Black community, you must ensure that you have that Black perspective, even though the theory might not be an Afrocentric theory, that you should still have your ideas, your ideology, and your perspective centered. Hence, identifying that biasness in research, which often, as researchers, we try to describe why we're not biased, instead of saying, I am biased this way or the other way. I've also looked at culturally relevant pedagogy, and I often say, I met with, I've been following Gloria Ladson-Billin for a while, and I was able to attend a conference that she presented at over the summer, and took pictures with her. So that one will be framed and set aside on my list of heroes that I'd like to share with my children and the next generation, that these were the heroes that I followed. So Gloria did say something in one of our conversations, and hence I brought this idea of the roots under each student. A pedagogy that uses students' customs, characteristics, experiences, and perspective as tools for a better classroom, or for better classroom instructions. So it is not a professor or a lecturer standing in front of the classroom and just saying what they think, but it is a lecturer standing in front of the classroom and looking at all the different perspectives in front of them and asking, how can I harness all of this to create a better space for my learners? Because these learners are going out and working together. They'll be taking further taking classes together and all that. And so by neglecting one perspective over the other, you're leaving these knowledge behind, and many of our students are then being robbed of the kind and the full education, the kind of education they should have, or that full perspective that they deserve for the kind of money they pay. So, yeah. So this is not a theory, but I often use the logo from the Black Student Support Office to talk about how the holistic support works and why it is important for Black students. So within this perspective that I share, for providing holistic support, I believe that it is important for the university, the wider community, which includes their families, parents, their social groups, church, or whatever, or religious circles, and for the students. Many times the students are asking themselves, why is no one helping me? And I look around and I said, okay, so if no one helps you, then why aren't you helping yourself? Right? And I know this sounds really crude, but as part of what I present for holistic support for Black students is that Black students must be able to contribute equally to their own education, and then leave the rest for the Black Student Support Office to find these other participants, which is the MSVU community and the external MSVU community. Leave it to me, if they're not doing their jobs, leave it to me to then interact with these other stakeholders for the advancement of knowledge, or for students to do better in their academic work. And this seems to always be, a successful way of supporting students when they know that others are there who has their backs, and who is willing and able to provide a kind of supports. And I said, when they know, because they don't, we often have this belief that the students are always going to be in need, but I've been at this job for so many years, and there are some students I see once or twice, and I ask, why didn't you ever show up? And they often say, I just know that you have my back, and I know when I need it, you'll be there. And that's all that matters to them. And this is the kind of image that I'd like for us to have as a university, where our students know that we have their backs, and that when they need us, we have the supports, the services, and the tools ready for them to participate in research work or whatever work they're participating in. So I see the time is running down, so I'll be very quickly. Challenges and barriers. I don't think I have enough room to talk about the challenges and barriers that we can face, or Black students face at being able to transcend into this research space. But as someone who attempted a Black student in research group, I can share so many barriers, so many frustrations, and so many times when I just say I want to throw the towel in. But I knew at the end there was a goal. There was something that was going to be achieved, and it was achievable. And I had faith that it would work. So there are some invisible barriers, which I'll share one and just take an image of what I'm talking about. It's just a cattle just standing at a fence and looking out, And those are some of the invisible barriers that we don't really consider. Where students are told by faculty members or their instructors, I have an open door policy. Just come whenever you'd like. And every time the student shows up, the faculty is either busy or the door is closed. And so after coming to that spot, to that office 2 or 3 times, and they can't get any help, they just don't bother coming anymore. Similar to those cattles that you see on our way to the valley when we're going to pick apples. They don't even bother touching that electric fence anymore because they've been shocked too many times. So those are the kind of invisible barriers that we need to consider. That what am I doing in my practice that is keeping students from coming to me in this area for questions around research work, or for even asking me? Ask yourself now, when was the last time students asked you about your research? So within your own research, you should be able to, or we all should be able to generate that kind of interest where students are eager to learn what we're doing and to find out, can I do this? Or is there something lacking in your work that I can take on, or where can I support? So ask yourself that question. When was the last time I was asked about my own research? And then maybe you can ask yourself, when was the last time a Black student asked me about my own research? And then, we can see what I mean in terms of the engagement piece. Some possible solutions, and I said some because there are many solutions. I talked about funding as a barrier earlier. That is important. We need to increase funding. And I said increase, I grudgingly put increase. I assume that there is something in there. But we need to increase funding and scholarships. We need to strengthen mentorship. And strengthening mentorship, we have many mentorship programs that exist. For instance, there's one that is being carved out of the Black Students in Research program, where we're asking faculty members to mentor a group of students in write a paper. And the students have been trained, like I said, throughout the summer on all aspects of research. They learned how to select a topic to how to present their work. And now they're going to embark on the writing piece, which will need some guidance. And again, I'm one in the office and thus require a team of people to support. And thankfully, there are some faculty members who have volunteered their time to support me in this area, to support our students, I should say, in this area. But it does reduce some of my workload, and so I'm thankful for that. An inclusive curriculum, and we all know that, build a community and a support network for our students. So this inclusive space that I'm talking about is bringing students in from the beginning, asking them what their interests are, and also understanding that the students are bringing different perspectives, and how can you harness their lived experiences and to help them to engage in research. Many students approach this support office, the lounge, and they believe that their lived experiences or lived expertise must be excluded from research in order to move on to the work that they need to do. So often I would say to students, just share a Proverbs to begin. Just share your own personal experience. Just talk about what you know. and then carve that into the work that you're learning. Because your aim here at Mount Saint Vincent University is to add to what you've already know, not to empty yourself of what you know and take up a whole new perspective. So this is the kind of research that we're hoping students would involve in, where they would add to what they've already known and to build on that. So some best practices, again, successful strategies that and best practices for increasing the participation of Black students in research. It's I can think of this a group of students who have gone through some research work on campus. Black students, and some of you might know them, like Nicholas and Janine and Kesa and Ajoke, and you will have all of these names in there. You can, if we tell students about these success stories, if we tell them about other Black students who have done similar work, and it may have been incomplete, or it may have been work that they can add to, where they can see value of adding something to the community, I think we can begin the conversation that way. And so I have here my recommendations and conclusions. And please do take these with an open mind. Again, these recommendations are very, I think, they're generic, needless to say. The university must strengthen support for potential Black students in research. What does that even look like? I already talked about all the barriers that exist. So strengthen and support then. If I might be a bit biased, then look at the university then ought to look at these areas that have these existing supports for Black students in research and bolster those. Provide a kind of support where these areas can advance the work that they're doing. And then before you know it, the idea can spread across the university to be incorporated into all aspects of research that is being conducted on campus. Creating this inclusive and equitable research environment, we are doing much to attempt to create this inclusive space, and I am an example of this here today. I don't know of too many equity-seeking staff who are participating in these kinds of research and are given the kind of opportunities to participate in research. Again, as an example, but also as an exceptional example, is that much of the research and the exceptionalities that I'm speaking of, it is self-motivated, but also there are others, like as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, there were faculty members who sought out, who came after me and said, I will be following up. And these are the kinds of supports that our Black students need, where someone will say, I'm looking at you, not for the bad things. I'm looking at you because I know you can do research, and I will ensure, I will nag you until you get there. And these are the kinds of supports that students need. A unified call to action that to involve Black students in research. This is not, or should not be, a BSSO initiative. This is a university-wide initiative. At the end of the day, what little I do in this space could expand to a university-wide initiative where we pay close attention to the potentials of our students going through this space. And we have a call to action to focus on especially this small group. And then we can use this as a small sample size and expand it into something big, where all students going through this university has the potential or had the opportunity to participate in research. And I mean serious research doesn't necessarily mean doing articles or taking on books and all that. It could be as simple as the work you do in the classroom, but you're taking it so seriously that that the work that you want to produce, you know that it represents you, and you are representing your university. So I think the kind of work that we can enact would go beyond just the Black students in research as it is today with the current Black students in research group. They are taking this knowledge that they've gained here back into the classroom and are producing much better papers. They're producing better research. The discussions are much more advanced. And I'm proud to say that it is because of the kind of support that they have and the collaborative work that they're doing in this setting. So getting down to the end, the call to action. Here are some questions I have for you. What have I done? So don't think about what the university has done. Let's assume the university has done nothing. And I want you to ask yourself, what have you done to support research amongst equity-seeking group, especially Black students in research? And then what will you do in the future if you haven't done anything? What will you do in the future? So what have I done? As I mentioned earlier, was create the Black Student Support Group. And if you have the option of putting in the chat what you have done towards research with Black students, I know I can see some faculty members in here that I know of who have made special effort in bringing Black students into that space to conduct research with them, or for labs and all of these kinds of things. And these are the kinds of recognition that goes unnoticed, but we need to bring them to the forefront, and so people know that these things are happening. They're happening on small scales, but when we put them all together, they're happening in silos. When we put them all together, we will see that the Mount is actually doing something great amongst the Black students in research. Yep, I think I'm almost done. For those who were waiting, thank you.
Thank you very much, Randy. That was an amazing talk, and I know we tried to schedule you in the winter term, and that didn't happen. So it was well worth the wait to have you here with us presenting. I did note that in the chat there are a couple of examples that I think might be of interest to Black students at the Mount who are interested in research. And one is, it's a bit of a time-sensitive one, and it's about URSAs. And I don't know if, well, the link is there. So if anyone
Yes.
Clicks on the link and are interested in getting more information, you can reach out to Cecilia in the research office. And then I see the link to Dimensions and to the Scarborough Charter, which are obviously, as you said, Randy, at the level of the university. So that's amazing. Randy, can I ask, would you consider writing something about this in the conversation about the underrepresentation of Black students getting involved in research in post-secondary education as a general phenomena?
As a paper? Absolutely.
Sweet, thanks.
Yes.
Are there questions for Randy?
Yes.
If so, if you can just raise your hand or put it in the chat. I have a question, Randy, about, oh, sorry, I'll let you go ahead, John, and then I have a question. Go ahead, please. Oh, we can't hear you, John.
I think he was, it's on mute. Okay, there we go.
Thank you. First, Randy, thank you. That was an excellent presentation. One question I guess I have, and this may be beyond the scope of this group, but thinking about the research opportunities that are available to Black students on campus, would it be feasible to include that in the section about research in Mount 101, just so that all students are seeing that, and thinking broadly as well, but specifically in this instance around Black students, because being presented with those opportunities, being aware of what the funding and proposal process looks like, from very early in their undergraduate and graduate careers, might be beneficial. I don't know if it's possible to do that. It's just something that might be of benefit.
Yeah, thanks, John. And in my grad thesis, I used this word unprepared. Sorry, university unpreparedness. It's not really a word, but I used it in any case, which I described as the university not really being prepared for Black students. In this case, I think I get the idea that you're presenting, and I think that to do that, we need to then deal with the kind of barriers that currently exist, so that when we promote these kinds of things, that we're not setting ourselves up for failure. Because once we've called the students, if we have nothing to offer, they're gone, and they're telling the next 3 generations of students who will potentially come, don't go there. There's nothing to offer. So we have to wait 4 years before another group of students come in and hear our stories again.
Great. Thanks for that question, John. Other questions from folks on the call? We've got a couple of minutes left, so we can maybe take one more question. I had a question, Randy, about the connection with, as an example, you're talking about existing structures and supports on campus. And I wondered if, for example, if the Faculty Association Research Committee has met with you, or if you've met with them to talk about the underrepresentation of Black students in research. And if not, if that might be a good venue to have that conversation.
Yeah, no, I have not. But yes, this is a very this is a venue that we should really consider. Again, I always look at the funding aspects of the work that I'm doing, in that it's often left on me to navigate a lot of these kinds of work that is happening in this space, and I love to do it. But what I hate doing it is, what I hate happening is coming into this, being able to show the university what I can do, and then having to go to something else because something else is required. I hate doing that. I like to see things right through to the end. And so much of the work that exists in the BSSO is often on a smaller scale. And I know that it can expand to a space where the entire university benefits, and where the entire university can take ownership of the work. So yes, bringing this to the faculty association, or faculty researchers who can get a better understanding of the students who are in their spaces, I think would be a great idea. And, I think too, just asking that question, like I asked earlier, when was the last time a Black student inquired about your research? And have you inquired about Black students in research recently? And I think these are the kinds of conversations that we should and must have in these spaces. This is an academic space, and we need to develop these inquisitive minds and promote in research, and to actively seek out those students who are just passing through.
Right. Thanks, Randy. We're just about out of time. So before we sign off, I'd again just like to express my sincere thanks to you, Randy, for being here with us today and for your amazing presentation, which has been recorded and will be posted on the Black and Indigenous Speaker Series site, which you can find on the Research Office website, and it will live there. And I hope that others who were not able to be with us today avail themselves of your amazing talk and use that as a teaching and learning tool, maybe in a research methods class or some kind of a class, or even just a conversation starter. And I appreciate your dedication and the incredible work that you do in support of our Black students at the Mount. So again, thank you so much, Randy, for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Take care. We'll see you in the new year for our next Black and Indigenous series speaker. Thank you.